Welcome to the Waves of Joy podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. I'm a mindset empowerment coach and an energy healer. This podcast is about finding joy. It will also be about inspiring people who have built joy-filled lives. You'll hear more about how to find joy through the day, the weeks, the months, and years of your life, and learn about how to spread joy. You'll also hear powerful stories that don't sound joyful at the beginning, but where joy was found. I started this podcast because I wanted to normalize finding joy in the ups and downs of daily life. I hope you feel inspired and entertained. Pop in your earbuds, take me with you on your commute, or both. Let's do this. Find waves of joy. Would you like to feel better and release limiting beliefs? Of course you would. I created a free meditation for you that's downloadable. As soon as you click submit, I'll email you with a downloadable version of this free meditation. Go to brendawinkle.com/feel better. Hey, Katrina, welcome to Waves of Joy.
Hi, Brenda. I am so excited to be here and to talk with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited too. So we've already done this one time for your podcast, and I will link that in the show notes.
Yes.
Manifestation Mama, right?
Yes. And link your episode too. So anyone who hasn't listened to it yet can come listen to that episode. It was amazing.
Oh, it was so much fun to talk with you.
I received so many beautiful notes from that episode. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. You're welcome. Thank you. It was truly my pleasure. And your podcast name, Manifestation Mama, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's funny because it really is kind of how it's how I live my life. I live my life under these principles of manifestation. And I realized that before I really knew what manifestation was, that I had been living my life doing it unintentionally, but really just having clear intentions and having optimism in life, even with, difficulties and challenges that, we all face, and being able to overcome them with this eye on our intention and optimism. And those are two really big principles that I realize have been guiding my whole life. And then once I really became more intentional with being intentional, right? Like actually understanding what I'm doing. It's been incredible to see what can happen. So I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes. So that resonates with me. I didn't realize what I was doing was called manifesting for many, many years. I just knew that I had an intention to do things, and I am optimistic by nature. And I didn't even really resonate with the term manifesting for a long, long time because I didn't quite understand what it was. And it felt too out there and too hard to reach until I realized, oh, this is what I do. This is like how I move through the world. But for someone who's listening to Waves of Joy podcast that maybe like, okay, I kind of know what it is, but I don't really know what it is, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I think we all have evidence in our life of manifestations. And what is a manifestation? It's really just bringing into existence, into our reality, something that started with a thought. It's turning our thoughts into things, and our thoughts do turn into things, not every single thought. But it's really just, we can see evidence in our life of us having a desire for something, and then us seeing that desire come into our existence. And, I think people have this misconception about manifestation that it's like, oh, we just sit on our couch and we're meditating and we're just calling in things, and it's like woo woo, right? And it's not that at all. I think part of it is meditating, right? And getting into some clarity of what it is that we actually would like to see in our life, what it is that we actually desire. So often, as women, as moms, as you know, we can get into this place of like, what do other people want? What do other people need? And so really taking some time in meditation to find that clarity of like, what it is that I really want to see in my life? What is it that I really would love to see? What is it that I desire? And just sitting there and getting that picture. And then when we have that clarity, when we have that vision, it's like, okay, what is one step that I can take to bring me closer to that reality and start taking action and actually doing things? So it's not just like, let me sit and things come. It's let me do things and see what happens as I start to create this vision and bring this vision to life and see it in my reality. And we all have examples of this where we've manifested things, whatever we want to call it, right? It doesn't matter. We can call it, being intentional. We could call it whatever we want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's what we're actually doing and how we're being that is what matters, because that's how we're going to manifest in our life.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
and so for someone that's like, oh, okay, what does it mean? It really just means bringing our desires into reality. And we've all done that in our life, but it's being intentional about it. And, to kind of get into a little bit more about it, why do we not see things in our existence that we desire? Because we have resistance to it.
Mm-hmm.
The first 7 years of our life, we are learning a program of how we see the world, how we see money, how we see relationships, how we see love, how we see, education, everything in our life. It's a program. And our parents, our teachers, our loved ones, they're the programmers. They're putting in the program.
Right.
It's how we see these things. And as children, we don't have the capacity to say like, I don't really agree with that. Or maybe that's true for that situation, but maybe for another situation, it would be different. We actually take these programs, these beliefs, and as we become adults, we use that as our filter in how we see the world. And so there may be things that we desire in life, but we don't see them in our life because we have all this programming that tells us why we can't have it or why it's not possible or why we're unworthy. And so with manifestation, I actually found manifestation through healing, because when we heal the parts of us, we heal that subconscious programming, we heal the wounds, that's when we're going to see more of what we desire, because we're not going to be resistant to what it is that we actually desire in life.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so the resistance comes up for people when they have a belief that maybe contradicts the thing that they want. So for example, if you think that having more money is going to make you a bad person, why would you have more money? Right. And so I love that you're talking about this idea of resistance. So if the thing isn't in your life, maybe there's a resistance there. Maybe there's a belief that's competing with your desire.
Yes. And, if we're talking about subconscious programming, then these thoughts, these beliefs, oftentimes they are subconscious. We don't even realize that we're thinking these thoughts. We don't even realize we have these beliefs, which is why doing the inner work, the healing, taking the time to reflect on our lives, journaling, all of that can bring these subconscious beliefs to the surface, because you might be thinking, this is not true. I actually want to have, XYZ. So there's no resistance there. What are you talking about? Well, it's because it's subconscious. We're not even aware of it. And then even just becoming aware of it, right? It isn't enough. That's the first step, right? Because if you're not even aware of it, you can't change it. But once you become aware of it, you have to change it on a subconscious level, or you have to have like so much force and energy to shift. It's so much harder to shift on a conscious level, because it's like a merry-go-round, right? Like we put some effort to try to change it, but then that subconscious programming comes right back up, and it becomes a block to what it is that we desire. And so it's like becoming aware of what is the resistance, what are the beliefs that I have, that maybe, aren't mine, right? Most likely they're not
Mhm.
mine. They were handed to me or given to me, and then releasing those, rewriting those beliefs into beliefs that support you and what it is that you desire.
I love that. Yeah, and it's so impactful when we start to think about ways that we believe something and yet we don't believe something. And you're talking about the subconscious, and you have an interesting background. So I deal a lot with the subconscious programming in theta healing. That's what we do, is unpack the subconscious beliefs. And you want to tell us about your background, because I know it's there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I actually I've been practicing law for 10 years, and I went through a really challenging time in my life where I think a lot of us can relate to this, where we have like on the outside, like we're checking the boxes. Like, for me, those boxes were, career, family, the house, the great relationships and friendships and all of this. But on the inside, I was overwhelmed. I had so much anxiety. I had so much codependency on what my bosses thought of me, what my peers thought of me, what my parents thought of me. I was just so worried about what everyone else thought about me. And I didn't really take the time to say, what is it that I truly want in my life? Instead, I asked, what will make these people love me more? Or,
Right.
and so I always like question this, like, why am I feeling this way? Like, I have all the things that people desire in life, or that I thought I desired in life, but I still feel this anxiety and this stress. And I realized that I had just so much of this codependency on others. And
Mhm.
I didn't have the tools to manage my stress. I hadn't done the inner work to release the desire that I had for other people's approval. And so when I had my second child, I started to do my own inner work, and I did hypnotherapy with a hypnotherapist, and I started to release so many things through biofeedback, and started to work on my own healing journey. And that's when I realized that my wholeness in life, it truly comes from the inside out. And so when
Mhm.
I started to feel that wholeness and that peace, my whole life started to change. And the funny thing is that nothing really changed. I had the same job, I had the same boss, I had the same, home, family, everything was the same, but everything started to change because I had changed. And that's when I really started to realize how we are very powerful co-creators, and we create first from the inside out. And really, the world is truly a reflection of
Mhm.
our experience on the inside. And so once I went through this experience, I worked for a couple years as an attorney, and I was like, oh, I figured this out, how to be an attorney and, really thrive at home and be like present at home, and like go on picnics with the kids and just have so much fun with my family and enjoy my work. I was like, I kind of figured this out. And then COVID hit, and I ended up getting laid off, and I took a real look at my life and just said, okay, yes, I enjoyed what I was doing, and I could continue, doing that. Or is there something else that's out there for me? And I was led to share my story with, empowering women. And I started to do my own studies of the subconscious mind, and I became certified in breath work and in hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming. So, all different tools to work with the subconscious mind so that I could then guide my clients to release their subconscious programming. And it's been such a incredible journey, and I'm excited to see kind of where things unfold as I start to do public speaking, and yeah, just share with other women and empower them. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful work to do, and I'm so thankful for it.
I love this. I think COVID changed lives for millions of people all around the world. I know that it was definitely it was the last straw for me. I was kind of headed towards a change because I had a health crisis in August of 2019. And that really got my attention. It was a pretty severe health issue that landed me in the hospital for 5 days and major surgery and a long time recovering. And the interesting thing was, even though I had told myself I was sort of irreplaceable everywhere, everyone did fine without me in all of these places. In fact, it just continued to go on. So then when COVID hit in March, this was August, and then in March, and then I got laid off from one of my two jobs because I had two jobs and was a business owner. My second job laid me off. I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? And then the other thing was that I almost felt relief when I got laid off because I was like, oh, now I can work just like 50 hours a week. And then I heard myself say that and I thought, what are you thinking? I can just work 50 hours a week. Are you crazy? And that was the beginning of searching for the life that I now have, which is a life with a lot more freedom and a lot more ease
Yes,
and a
yes.
lot more
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, when we're talking about manifestation and how we are able to be more intentional with it, 2 weeks before I got laid off, I started to visualize and to set an intention of like, what would I do if I had time freedom? If I could just like get up and do whatever I wanted. Like, what would I do? How would I spend my time? And I had this, vision of like maybe 5 year, right? The 5 year plan. Like in 5 years, maybe I will transition out of legal practice. And at that time, I thought I was going to be a stock trader. And that's what I was going to do during my days. And then I realized for me, where I was at in my education of learning the stocks, that I didn't want to sit in front of my computer for hours at a time watching the stock market. I wanted to do other things. And so 2 weeks later, that's when I got the news that I was laid off. And so it starts with our intention. It
Mm-hmm.
start and it can happen so quickly, and it can happen in a way that we don't expect it, right? Like I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to get laid off, that's how I'm going to have time freedom. That was
Right.
not on my radar at all. But it ended up being that we were able to make it work, and I got a part-time job, and you know, things that I thought were like impossible became possible when we just like allow ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to dream a little bit and to think like, what if there was so many different possibilities that we don't have to figure out the how, right? I didn't have to
Yes.
figure out how do I get time freedom. I just had to set that intention of, this is what I desire. I am a match for it. I can see it. This is what I would do during my day. This is how I would feel, and get into those feelings. And that's when it comes, and it happens again and again and again in my life. And it's so incredible to see it
And it
come together.
happens fast. And you alluded to this. It can take time sometimes, but if we're really in those feeling states, it's fast.
Yeah. And it goes back to the resistance, right? I didn't have resistance to having time freedom. So it came very quickly. But
Mm-hmm.
there might be resistance to other things, right, that we desire. And that's why it's taking longer.
Well,
And
this idea of resistance. Remember me telling you I had this health crisis. It was the first day of school in August of 2019. I did not want to be there. And so while I didn't consciously decide to get a gallstone stuck in the cystic duct of my liver, I sort of did decide I didn't want to be there. And then I wasn't there.
Mhm,
But it
mhm.
still took me until this August to actually say, okay, I'm going to really follow my intuitive nudges and now go do this other thing. Um,
Ah,
so,
and I love how you say that too, the intuitive nudges, because I think as we become more curious about manifestation and we start to see it, how it works in our lives, that our intuition is such a powerful force when we're manifesting, because it truly is there to tell us like, go here, do
Mm-hmm.
this. This is your next step. And our intuition, I heard it described recently as our intuition is like our future self. And it's
Yeah.
saying, here, come this way, this, let's do this. And we talked about this a little bit when you were on my podcast. But I was in a relationship where there was verbal abuse, and I had so many signs that were telling me that there were things going on, like unfaithfulness and all these different signs of things that I just shouldn't be okay with at that time. I just
Mm-hmm.
allowed things to happen, and I ignored my intuition. I
Mm-hmm.
ignored the signs that were right there telling me, get out, get out, get out, until I no longer ignored them. And then I started to lean into that. And down to last week, I went to the dentist and they were like, I had a feeling that came out, and they were telling me, okay, you're going to need a crown. And the way it was being described to me, I was like, do I really need the crown? Or is it just like, we could do a crown because maybe it's, a better option. And my intuition was telling me like, I don't really think I need a crown, and I don't really want to spend the money on something that I don't truly need, and just like have all of the time and, all the stuff that goes into that. And so when I went back the next week to have the crown, I was like, I want to take a look at my x-ray and just understand like why we're doing this. Cause if I don't need a crown, I don't want to get one. And so it was another dentist who happened to be there. And she like said, we can go in there and look and see. And sure enough, she's like, you just need a feeling. And, and so I was just like, so my point is that our intuition, it can guide us like in every area of our life, like down to whether we need a filling or a crown. And the more that we lean into it and listen to it, the more it's going to guide us. Because when we ignore our intuition, it's kind of like, okay, I'll step back, and it gets quieter and quieter and quieter until we don't even know what it is that we don't even know which step to make. We're always looking outside of ourselves. Like we're asking friends, should I do this or should I do
Mm-hmm.
that? Because we don't have that self-assurance. But the more that we lean into our intuition and start to listen to it and start to realize how wise it is, and how it's really leading us down the path that things start to happen really quickly when we start to listen more and more to our
Yes.
intuition.
So when we're not listening to our intuition, for me, I start to have physical symptoms in my body. I will get a sore throat if I'm not saying something I need to say. I will get muscle tension if I'm doing something that's out of integrity. I'll feel that sense of muscle tension somewhere. Do you get those physical symptoms too? Is that something you think
Yeah.
everybody has?
I mean, I do. And I didn't really think of it in terms of that way of like, oh, I'm not listening to my intuition. For me, I've noticed it when like consciously I might be unaware of something that's going on, but like
Mhm.
if my stomach hurts and like obviously if there's something conscious on my mind that's like causing me maybe some worry or something that's causing me anxiety, I might feel it in my stomach.
Mhm.
But sometimes I've noticed where it happens and I'm not even consciously aware of something, so I know there's like a subconscious going on there, but I didn't really link it to my intuition. But that's definitely something I'm going to keep in mind when that happens, of like, is my intuition telling me something and
Mhm.
guiding me, and I'm just not listening to it.
Yeah, it happens for me both ways, where my body will sense things before I do, before my conscious self does. Like
Oh, yes, yes.
people that
Okay.
may not be safe for me,
Mhm.
or situations that may not be safe. And then it also happens on the opposite end when I have ignored intuition. Then I'll start to feel like, oh, I don't feel good in my body right now. Like there's something going
Yes.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. No, I do. I can definitely see that. And I think too, sometimes when we have feelings in our body, it could also be resistance
For sure.
that's in there, right? Because sometimes there's things that we want to do, but there's fear, right? Are we going to
Hmm.
do a good job, or do I know what I'm doing, or the worthiness, right? And so that can come in a physical manifestation as well. And so I think the more that we nurture that relationship with our intuition, the more we're going to know, okay, is this resistance? Is this my intuition telling me this isn't where I
Mhm.
need to go? And we know the answer. We know the answer. It's just a matter of getting still and quiet enough to listen to that nudge.
For sure. Getting still and quiet enough to listen to that nudge. That's pure gold right there. Because I can think about the times in my life when I've been sick, for example. And there's usually two reasons that I get sick. One is that I have gone to the point of burnout, and the only way I have to recover is to, like my body says, stop. And then the other reason that I get sick is because there's a resistance there. I don't deserve to do this thing. Or it used to be, when I was back in my prime people pleasing days, that sometimes, much like the gallstone, I would not want to go to something, but I couldn't find the strength to say no. And so I would manufacture, not intentionally, of course, but I would manufacture headaches or a random fever or whatever it was, and then I could say, oh, I can't come to this thing because I have this thing. Because at that point in my life, I didn't have the strength of whatever to say, I don't want to come. I'm not coming because I don't want to. And so that used to make me sick too.
Oh yeah, the people pleasing can definitely have such a like a negative impact on our body, because we don't want to do something, and there's a reason why. Maybe we need to rest, or maybe
Mhm.
we don't want to be around, certain people, or whatever it may be. I mean, sometimes like we just need the rest. It's
Yeah.
like in another situation, maybe we would say yes, but right now I just want to rest, and that's okay
Mhm.
to set that boundary.
Absolutely. So I'm really curious, how did you find hypnosis?
So I told my OBGYN when I was feeling anxiety and just feeling overwhelmed, and he recommended a hypnotherapist to me, and he was like, you could see a psychologist or psychiatrist, or you could go see Corey. And he like circled his name, and he's like, go see Corey. And so that's what I did, and so that's how I got introduced to hypnotherapy. I personally don't do hypnotherapy. I do hypnosis, which so I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I can use hypnosis to help. Really, it's just a way to relax ourselves, so that, and get into a place where our mind slows down, our thoughts slow down, and our brain waves can become so relaxed that it's very similar to meditation, but even more relaxed. And then we just, like, whatever we hear, we're just like absorbing it on a subconscious level. And it can have a really powerful impact on our beliefs, on our thoughts, on how we see ourselves, how we carry ourselves. And, with hypnosis, it's not like we hear it once and then it's like, okay, like it's done, right? We can listen to hypnosis recordings, over and over, like in the morning, and really to just get that shift and to go forward in whatever it is that we desire, whether it's, feeling more um, confident, or more organized, or whatever it is that we want to be and become. It's a very powerful tool to help make that shift.
I love that. So you and I were at an event in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago together, and there
Yes.
was a I think he was a hypnotist. I don't think he's a hypnotherapist, but
He
I
was a
could be wrong.
hypnotherapist.
A
He was
hypnotherapist.
a
Okay.
hypnotherapist. Yes, yes.
It was mind blowing. So it was this combination of breath work, sound bath, and hypnotherapy all in one. I loved that experience. And I felt so like clear after that experience. I loved it. And I would be curious, for someone with your background of understanding and practicing hypnosis, like, can you help us unpack the process a little bit? Why is it so effective?
Yeah, I mean, so it's relaxing so when we are in the conscious mind, there's so many thoughts that are just firing and wiring. And when we get into hypnosis state, it's just relaxing us. It's really just clearing our mind. And so there are different ways to relax ourselves. And a lot of the times it's guided through visualization. Sometimes it's like, going downstairs. And it's just really guiding ourselves to relax every single part of our body. And it's really truly like it's very similar to meditation, right? Except we just go a little bit deeper. But a lot of times, even in meditation, there are elements of hypnosis that are going on that we might not even be aware of. I mean, even when we're watching TV, right? There are forms of hypnosis, like the people are studying this, right? They're studying how do we get messages into people's mind on a very deep level. So being aware of what's going on, it's going to make us more aware of like what we're consuming even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all over and people are studying this, and it's nothing to it's good to be aware of because we want to be conscious of what we're consuming. But when you are in a situation where you're doing like hypnosis and sound bath, if you are trusting the people that are facilitating it, that they're good people, then it's a beautiful way to relax us and to fill our subconscious mind with messages that we want to hear that are going to support us in our lives to have lives that are more fulfilling and more wholeness, more peace, all those things that we desire in life. And so it's really just if you want to get into like kind of the science behind it, it's similar to meditation when we have like different brain waves that we can go into. And so when we do hypnosis, we go into a brainwave where we're just more relaxed. It's almost like a dream state where the information that we absorb, it just absorbs on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. That
And
makes
so
sense.
it lasts longer and it's more impactful.
And, I think that there's this fear from the 1980s that someone's going to make you, cluck like a chicken or whatever. And in my experience of hypnosis, you are still fully aware of it's not like somebody's coming in and overriding your brain or
Yeah.
overriding your free will. You still have complete free will and choice, even in hypnosis. And I think
Yeah.
that's
You're fully
really
conscious.
important. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you're fully conscious, you're fully aware. There's nothing, again, trusting the person that you're working with, but there's nothing to be afraid of. You're not like knocked out, blacked out. You're going to wake up and be like, what happened? You might wake up and be like, oh, that was really cool. Right. But
right.
you're fully conscious and aware. You're just so relaxed.
Yeah.
But you have full control of your senses, of your body, and yeah, it's not a scary process at all.
No, it's not scary. And there is a total awareness that is present, even though you're super relaxed.
Yes, absolutely. And there's like with my hypnotherapist, he would use like gongs, and that also helps like to just get you more relaxed and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of go. It's really just kind of like you almost feel like a sinking when you
Yeah.
do it. And it's just like, yeah, it's just taking you deeper and deeper into relaxation so that you can clear that mind and just absorb. You're not really questioning what's being said. You
Mm-hmm.
can, but you're so relaxed that as long as it's in alignment with you, you're like, okay, yes, yes. That's why for a lot of times when you're working one-on-one with someone, you want to use their words, because then it's like, there's no chance that they're going to be like, oh, that doesn't really align with me. And then they kind of come out of it and then they have to relax again. It's like, use their words and just like get it really deeper and deeper. But when you're in a group setting, you can choose words that are going to be in alignment for everyone, right? So it's more broad language that you're using.
Oh, I love that. That's powerful. Thank
Yeah,
you for
it is.
sharing that. I want to make sure that people know where they can find you. We're not quite done yet, but I'd love to know, how can people connect with you?
Yes. So we talked about the Manifestation Mama podcast. That's on, Spotify and Apple, and Google. And I also am on Instagram at Katrina Manifestation Mama, Katrina. And there's different ways to kind of get to know me more. I've got a freebie on there for how to kickstart your morning. And I also have free discovery calls where we can explore, doing different techniques together. I do one-on-one coaching. I also have a membership where we come every month and we do breath work together. And it's very exciting, and, retreats and things like that. So it's a lot of fun things going on and different ways to connect.
Oh, I love this so much. It's awesome. So you and I are going to be together again in Los Angeles in just a few short days.
Gosh,
And
yes.
I think this episode will come out a few weeks after that. But we've been part of a mastermind together. That's how we met. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and to be in your space and to be part of your world. And I love the energy that you bring to everything. And it's been so fun to watch your adventures in the last month. You've had a big family adventure. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate you so much and enjoy connecting with you. And you're just such a delight. And I love your energy. It feels so good to be on this Zoom with you right now.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so yes, one of the things that I manifested was this amazing trip to Ireland and went with my family. And there was a moment I can remember where we're like at this castle and it's so beautiful. And there's these like green hills and a double rainbow in the background. And the kids are like rolling down the hill and just
Oh,
like laughing their little hearts out. And I'm holding the baby. And I'm just like, this is just the most magical moment. And, the truth is that those moments exist all the time, every day. We don't have to be in Ireland, right? We can be anywhere. And those moments are there. It's right on the other side of our breath, of finding that centerness. I remember one time I was sitting in my living room and the kids were like screaming. I don't know what was going on. They were just like having a moment, a tantrum moment. And I started to get like frustrated. And then I just brought myself right back. And I said, you know what? This moment right here is exactly the same as if I was sitting on the ocean and hearing the ocean waves. Like it's all the same. It's how I interpret it. I interpret one or the other. And so I'm going to choose this moment to say, I am just so thankful for my family, for my children, and just love on them. And it just completely changed my perspective. And so those moments, those magical moments, yes, we can see them in the ocean or in that double rainbow in Ireland over the green hills with the castle, or we can see them right in our living room when we're sitting on the couch with our family. And
yeah.
it's all right there and it's available to us.
Oh my gosh, 100%. It's all right there. It's all in our perspective and what we're willing to see. We have to be willing to see the beauty and the magic and the abundance. And when we are, oh my gosh, look out because everything is on the other side of that choice.
Yes, yes. And and it's not to say that like it's a toxic positivity where we're just like overlooking things.
Mm-mm.
Like, acknowledge the frustration, acknowledge, the challenges and give space for that and to and sometimes it's like we don't know the reason why and we're just like this sucks and that's
Mhm.
part of our human experience, right? Those ups and those downs, but then it's saying, okay, now I'm ready to move forward or I'm ready to change my perspective because I truly believe that everything that happens to us, it happens for a reason.
Mhm.
Sometimes we know the reasons and sometimes we don't, but a lot of the times we do. A lot of the times it's there to teach us something or to guide us down a certain path. And, when I was on bed rest last year, it was like a 3 to 4 months of just being on bed rest, sitting on my couch. And having fear of, what could happen to my baby. And there were so many examples during that process of how powerful our mindset is and how we look at situations. And, there was times where it was like, oh, there's like a 70% chance your baby's going to be born, in this before, like, I think it was like 2 months too early or something like that. And so I was like, okay, so there's a 30% chance that the baby won't be born that early. And then the odds just, everything started to change. And I looked at it as how I chose to see the situation. And I think in so many examples, if we can learn to shift our mindset around things, it can make such a huge impact in the results that we see in our life.
Yes, that's so beautiful. How old is the baby now?
She is 8 months old.
And she's beautiful.
Thank you. She's so sweet.
I love what you said about changing your mindset. I was visiting my family last week in Wisconsin, and when my family's together, we're sort of all together, and it's so days and days of together time, and it's beautiful, and it's really nurturing. And then it's really a stark contrast when I got into the airport by myself, and I was going to go home to an empty house, not even a dog, because the dog moved with my daughter when she moved out. And so now we kind of share her, and the dog spends some days with me and then goes back home at night to my daughter's. And so I had this moment of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm like leaving all of these people I love and I'm going home alone, like literally alone. And that was a terrible feeling. I did not like it at all. And I was walking through the Minneapolis airport, and I went to this little organic place and sat down at the bar and ordered a sandwich that was just really frou-frou and organic and vegan and all the things. And then I had this moment of awareness thinking, I get to choose wherever I want to eat because I don't have to negotiate with anybody. So that mindset switch changed everything about how I felt in that moment. I was no longer feeling sad about being alone. I was feeling loved and supported by my family, grateful for the experience, and equally happy that I could make some choices on my own. And without that mindset shift, it would have been a rough couple of days.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. We truly have the choice of how we want to look at things and perceive things. And it really goes back to this idea of the program, right? Like, what program is running and how are we going to see situations? And we do have a choice to change the programming. And we talked about, it's being more effective on a subconscious level, right? But we can also do it consciously. We just, do it over and over and over again. But that's what we do. We have that choice every day to decide, how do I want to look at this situation? How do I want to see it?
Right. Do I want to feel bad or do I want to feel good? And, both choices are options, and there's not a value judgment around that from my perspective anyway. But I always think, why would you choose to feel bad if feeling good were an option?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And most of the time feeling good is an option, but sometimes it's not. And that's okay too.
Exactly. They all get to be here, all of those feelings.
Yeah. And then when you allow yourself to have those times where you don't feel so good and you just give yourself that space to feel it, you're just so ready to move forward and step into higher vibration.
There's so much information in those bad feeling moments. So my realization coming home, eating the sandwich with sauerkraut and beets and whatever was, okay, so I'm going home to an empty house. Do I want it to be empty? No. Okay, so what are you going to do about it, Brenda? What are you going to do? So I have a meeting tomorrow with a matchmaker. So I'll keep you posted.
Fun.
I don't know. I've never had a matchmaker. I don't know if I like it. All I can think of is conjuring that song from Fiddler on the Roof, the matchmaker.
Matchmaker.
That's the
Make
one.
me a match.
Yes, exactly. So
I think in high school I played the matchmaker.
Did you really?
I did. It was a lot of fun.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. In Fiddler.
Fiddler
Yeah.
and Rufus, yes.
Oh my
Her
gosh.
name was like Jetta or something.
Yenta, maybe?
Yenta. Yeah.
Yenta. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is incredible.
Oh.
I think, let's see, when I was a fairly new teacher, that was one of the musicals we produced. And it was really fun. I remember working on the blocking with the kids, and there was this old cart that one of the kids had to push across the stage, and we had to make it so it looked harder to push than it really was. And anyway, so much fun. I didn't
I
realize
love
you had a
that.
musical theater background.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I was always on stage actually since like 4 years old. I was in theater and did a little bit of musical theater. I don't have a strong voice, so I was always like, some um but I was always like, decent roles. Like I always had some kind of speaking role, but I played Aunt March in The Little Women. That was a lot of fun.
That's
I
awesome.
did The Odd Couple, but like the female version, and I was the quirky one. I can't remember what the name was of her, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. I can see you on stage. Totally. Totally. Well, I have just 5 questions. I used to call them rapid fire. I'm learning they're not. So they're just for fun. So the
Okay.
first one is, what is in your morning mug?
My morning mug has a latte 100% every morning.
Excellent. I love that. Is there a song that you hear that every time you hear it, you're just like, yes, this makes me feel so good?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I love Megan Trainor Better When I'm Dancing. That's so
Mm,
much fun.
I love that one. Yeah. Megan Trainor in general is just filled
Yes.
with goodness.
Yes.
Who inspires you?
Oh my gosh, so many people. Um, you know, right now I would have to say my biggest inspirations are my children. They just inspire me to like, yeah, to just grow and to love myself more because I'm modeling that for them. And so they're my biggest inspiration right now.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And you've got 3, right?
Yes.
Oh, I loved your Halloween pictures,
Oh,
your
thank
family,
you.
the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, we were the Wizard of Oz. It was so much fun. And I love the quote from Glinda when she tells Dorothy, like, you always thought the answer was like outside of you, right? She goes on this
Mhm.
whole journey to find a way home. And it's like you always had the answers inside of you. And it's like that's our intuition, right? That it's there
Yes,
to guide us. The answers are inside of us.
they are. They truly are. Is there a podcast you would recommend? Something that you love?
I love Kathy Heller's podcast. Don't Keep Your Day Job. I just started listening to Sahara Rose's podcast. She had an incredible episode, really about the patriarchy and even in the spiritual world, and it was really
Mm,
a powerful episode. So I started to listen to her. Yeah, those are
I'm going to check out Sahara Rose. I haven't checked that out yet, but I'm intrigued. I'm
yeah. Check her
intrigued.
out.
And my last question is, if you find yourself in a funk, feeling sad or mad or frustrated or low, what do you do to access joy and really flip that switch?
Um, I think first I give myself a lot of compassion and grace and just like acknowledge what I'm feeling and not make it mean anything more than what it is. I think that's important to just give ourselves a little bit of time or a lot of time, depending on the situation. But to answer your question, if we want to just give it like, let's get into joy, acknowledge it, allow myself to feel it. And then it really depends where my intuition is guiding me, right? Sometimes it might be, let me just go for a quick walk outside. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so great. That's what I've been doing a lot lately. Or sometimes it might be music, like let's put on a song and listen to something fun or listen to a podcast. Or even like just watch a funny movie and like curl on the couch. And yeah, those are some few things that I love to do.
That's so beautiful. I'm so grateful to have you in my life and as a friend. And thank you for being here on Waves of Joy.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I loved talking with you. And yes, I can't wait to see you next week.
Yes, it'll be so great.